Welcome to Box Office Buddies, a podcast where there's a new guest on each week and they are talking about their all-time favorite movie. We'll review it, we'll unpack it, we'll laugh about it, and have a lot of fun. I'm Branden Dillard, and this is my friend Kelly Young. Kelly, how are you, man?
What's up?
And who are you? What do you do? What do you want America to know about Kelly Young?
Oh man, I don't really want America to know about Kelly Young, if I'm being honest. But oh man, job-wise, I work as a sports coordinator for the city of Oklahoma City. So I'm very into sports. As you're gonna figure out in a second, I'm very into animated movies.
Yeah,
I tend to think that they're funnier than most comedies, actually. Yeah. So, I'd say the biggest things about me is just most of my life revolves around sports. Usually, youth sports. I lead in a lot of those, and I'm working with those with special needs as well. So most of my life is. Most of all of our lives are kind of work related. So if I'm not working, I'm golfing or I'm watching an animated movie, I guess. Yeah. So
that's cool. What's your favorite sport to participate in, and what's your favorite sport to coordinate?
Oh, I think my favorites. Growing up is always basketball. That's the sport I played my whole life. Golf is definitely the main sport I play at this point. It requires less being active. I've still played a decent amount of basketball, but I'd say golf is probably the one that I'm the most excited to get to play.
Yeah.
Coordinating wise, right now it's actually probably tennis because coordinating tennis, I get to a lot more time getting to work with the kids, getting to actually build relationships with them. So that's a lot of fun. And it's kind of I get to do things a lot more at my pace, not as much like we have a game at this time. We need to make sure we have everything going at this time. I can kind of just have an hour and a half to fill with how I want to fill it. And I think I have a lot more fun just being able to really connect with the kids a lot more.
Yeah.
So I'd go with that right now, tennis.
Yeah, that's cool. Favorite sports teams?
Oh, man. NBA is the Thunder. Anything college is OU. And then NFL is the Colts. After that, not like I don't really care too much about the MLB or any of those other leagues. But then golf is Scotty Scheffler all day. So.
Yeah. Oh, cool, man. Well, you mentioned animated movies and kind of those playing a big part in your life and watching them now. And so today we're talking about a movie that probably needs no introduction because of how iconic it is and because of how many big-time actors are in it. We're talking about Megamind. And so here is the premise, the rundown of Megamind. Though he is the most brilliant supervillain the world has known, Megamind, who is played by Will Ferrell, is the least successful. Thwarted time and again by heroic Metro Man, who is played by Brad Pitt, Megamind is more surprised than anyone when he actually manages to defeat his longtime enemy. But without Metro Man, Megamind has no purpose in life. So he creates a new opponent who quickly decides it's more fun to be a bad guy than a hero. First, what are your thoughts on that premise, rundown? Do you think that hits the spot? And second, have you ever looked at the cast of this movie and realized how many stars are in it?
Yeah, the cast is insane. That's I think part of why I find it as funny as I do.
Yeah, it's
just how you get that kind of cast together to just do some sort of what's supposed to be a kids movie. Which, if you really listen to the dialogue, it's just. So many of the jokes that are being made are just, you're not going to really understand as a kid, not like adult humor, but just more as the language they're using. The only thing I would say with, it's really interesting with the plot and just how you kind of find Megamind struggling with his purpose and you kind of see him reaching the goal he set and then struggling with, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I think that's really a relevant thing we deal with a lot.
Yeah, that's good. So, man, kind of going off that, what do you think makes big time actors like Will Ferrell, like Brad Pitt, Tina Fey, Ben Stiller, Jonah Hill, David Cross? What do you think makes them want to do animated children's movies?
I'd imagine just a lot of the creativity that can go into it. A lot of the things that are going on in that movie, the jokes only really work if it's animated, because you have to be able to maneuver things so purposely and just have so much control over what's going on. So I think that's a big draw. It also gives you a whole different audience because, one of my first introductions to Will Ferrell are Elf and Megamind.
Yeah.
And so then I get an adult and I hear about other movies he has. And of course I'm like, well, that guy plays Megamind, so I guess I'm gonna watch.
Yeah.
Same with Tina Fey. That was my first introduction to her, and then eventually I see things on SNL, or I see 30 Rock, or I see different things she's in. So I think that's also another big thing, is it brings in an audience that you kind of get to keep. Because I just grew up now thinking about them as those guys who play the characters in my favorite movie.
Yeah.
So I would say those two things, just the creative process, like the differences you can do and the jokes you can kind of make in these scenarios. And then, like I said, just the broader audience they're getting to bring in to their fan base.
That's good. So how'd you first discover this movie? And roughly how many times have you seen it?
Oh, man. The first time I feel like we went, the first time I remember seeing it, we went to probably a movie and just saw a trailer. And then I remember there being, I think, a World Series where Megamind was like the main thing they were advertising. Like they had it, when they're up to bat and the thing right behind it says Megamind. It was just everywhere. So I was hyped to see this movie. And so that's kind of how I got, and then just saw it in the theaters and just realized it was just amazing.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of been one of those things as a kid. I liked it for one reason. I just think it was a fun little movie where, the guy characters are silly or whatever. And then you become an adult and you're like, oh, this movie's just genuinely funny. I actually just love what's going on in this movie. And then the story I really like as well. Yeah. And then you start to know who the actors are. And if that even enhances it, you're just like, how did you get this cast?
Yeah.
So the amount of times, I mean, it's definitely double digits. It's just an easy movie to put on. Back when movies were just an hour and a half, so you didn't have to give up so much of your day just to watch a movie. But I would go for anywhere from 10 to 15 times that I've probably seen it. For a favorite movie, I don't know if that's a lot, but like I said, it's an easy thing to just put on, whether I'm paying attention or not, really. So I've seen it quite a bit.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember I have heard about Megamind for a long time and have just now watched it.
I made you watch it?
Well, yes.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah, so I was on our way back from a student camp, like on a charter bus. It was surrounded by 100 high schoolers. And they're like, what movie should we watch? And they're all chanting Megamind. And we're like, okay, we'll turn on Megamind. And I'm like watching it. And like the audio isn't great on those things. Kids are yelling. But I do remember watching it and thinking, this is kind of funny. And it's different. It wasn't what I was expecting. And then I watched it this past week and I was like, oh, this is great. This is funny. And I'm not a Will Ferrell fan, but now I'm like, okay, maybe he is a little funny.
Yeah, it definitely brings a different Will Ferrell in.
Yeah.
More, I don't know if controlled's the word, but it's like Will Ferrell's voice if someone else helped write it.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like.
Yeah. Man. So, I was watching this, I jotted down some questions. I'm like, man, I'd love to ask Kelly this. Who is your arch nemesis?
In life?
In life. In life. Big question, I know.
Oh, man. I mean, Kevin Durant, I know he doesn't consider me, but him and Lincoln Riley, I think, are both up there.
Yeah.
People that I consider to be my arch nemesis.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really say I have an arch nemesis, but you have those people just growing up in like sports that I guess I'm more competitive with. Of course, like your brothers. Yeah. That's a big one when I have two brothers and we're very competitive.
Yeah.
And really, some of hanging out with them, even it's me and my older brother doing everything we can to mess with our oldest brother. Yeah. So, but then when we're not working together, we're avidly trying to destroy each other. Yeah, so I guess I wouldn't say arch nemesis, but I think if I'm going to go with like competitive, I'd go with my brothers. They're the most fun to beat for me and the most hurt it is to lose to. So I'll go with them. But other than that, I think they're going to be professional athletes that don't know who I am. So
I resonate with that. I think of Lamar Jackson. I think of Joe Burrow. Yeah, man. They don't think about me often. I'm sure they don't, but I think about them at least twice a year when we beat them. What is your favorite scene / moment in the movie and why?
Oh man, I honestly really like the opening. I think the way that they just describe the plot at the very beginning is super funny. And he's like, oh, and it starts with him falling to his death. And he's like, oh, there I am again, falling to my death. And then they go back and just the way he describes his life, like he says, like, I'm 8 days old and still living with my parents. How sad is that? But the way I do really like how they open it because they set it up really well.
Mhm.
They give you an understanding of him really early on, and then just kind of like his his experience with Shul and how that all went for him. I think my favorite, man, that Megamind gets me very excited. So I don't know if I can, but I can give you at least a top 5.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can
please,
give you a favorite.
come on.
I love the opening.
Yeah.
I love the part where Metro Man's talking to the crowd and he starts walking on the water. And
I
it's,
love
it's
you
like,
too.
yeah, it's just a very just absurd scene where it just like it's not like he just thinks it's like it's him and he's talking to one person.
Yeah.
And I just love he just knows how insanely special he is as Metro Man. Everyone loves him, so he just feels like he can do whatever he wants, and everyone's going crazy. And the way he's even just like he just at one point he's talking, he just goes, "All right, everyone, quiet down. Hey, boys, quiet down back there." I just love it. It's just a random thing to say.
Yeah.
So that scene for sure. And then I love I love when he first walks into Hal's apartment when he's become Titan.
Yeah, yeah.
And your powers be unfathomable, unfathomable, without fathom.
Yeah.
That's really fun. I love the space dad and space stepmom stuff they have going on. And then I love when they go back and find Metro Man again. And they realize he's still alive, and just that whole process. And he's Music Man now. He starts singing. He's terrible, and Roxanne's just like, "You're terrible." And he's like, "Granted, you have talent." Gets into the whole thing.
Yeah.
I would say those are like my favorite ones. The ones that I remember the most, where I'm just like, all right, this scene is going. Put my stuff down. I want to watch this one again. But I don't know if I have a favorite. It just when it's your favorite movie, it's just the whole thing's your favorite.
Sure. So. Yeah. I remember watching it, and I was like, man, how would I answer this? And I love the scene where they go find Metro Man, and then he's like, walking them through kind of how he faked his death, like using his super speed.
Yeah,
like he goes there, reads
a book, like the meaning of or the meaning behind everything, or something like that.
Yeah, which is kind of like we'll get into this, but they're both just kind of looking for purpose. They're both kind of just like in some ways tired of the same old, and that's pretty deep for a children's movie. And so that's good. Okay, would you want to live? Well, first, do you pronounce it Metro City or Metrocity?
Just because I probably think Megamind's more quotable than Metro Man, I probably call it Metrocity. But I do like that. I think that was I don't know if you'll get into this later, but that was a really clever way for Titan to figure out that it wasn't it was Megamind all the time because he calls it Metrocity on accident. Because that's just such a Will Ferrell way of like calling something Metrocity for no reason. I just so many characters I can see shortening a thing into that. So definitely Metrocity.
Yeah. So would you want to live in Metrocity?
I mean, I don't know if I want to live anywhere where you've got that much like
a lot of crime.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a really happy place.
Yeah.
But it's like asking if you want to live in Gotham at some point, which is not as dark. So
I bet rent's good in Gotham.
I would go with I would go with yes. It seems like Megamind's finally, protecting the city, so things seem pretty great. But I definitely would have to have like the crime statistics first because it's not just normal crime going on in Metrocity. So. But I'll go with yes. I'll go with yes.
That's good. So let's move into kind of characters for a bit. Do you have a favorite character from the movie, and what did you like about them?
I feel I've seen this thing where the guy who plays Ryan on The Office talks about, they ask him who his favorite character in The Office is.
Yeah.
And he says, I know it's lame, but like Michael's my favorite character. He's like, it's lame to call the main character your favorite, but I mean, Megamind is just all the most quotable lines come from Megamind. Yeah. So it's hard to not just say him because he's the quotable part of the movie. Yeah. I really like Minion. I think Minion brings just a nice little plot in there. And just his loyalty. But I think Hal's just, I really have always liked Hal. And I think it just kind of how he's trying so hard for Roxanne. He knows he doesn't have a chance, and then he's finally given his chance and also ruined. But I just think they gave him, I don't know, I really liked kind of how they did Hal's storyline and making him the villain. So, I mean, I'm going to go with Megamind's my favorite. But I would give Hal and Minion a close second and third probably in there.
Yeah, what do you think they did when it comes to Megamind's character? What do you think was the best thing they did, whether it was his awesome lines, whether it was his backstory, or kind of like his driving force, his love interest. Like, if you had to pick one thing about Megamind that's like they did really good when it comes to this, what would you say?
Probably just making him so early, like the way I told about the opening part, they just made him easy to root for.
Yeah.
That when he did defeat Metro Man, you were kind of like, he did it.
Yeah.
And like, wait a second, that's not good. But
and I'm like, that's a skeleton.
Yeah.
This is a kid's movie. This is crazy.
But I think one of the best parts they did is they just made you like you got every emotion, whether you're a kid or adult, you just understood.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite part of the movie is just how funny he is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, that's definitely a plus for me. But I think just how believable his emotion is during it when he's happy or when just the way they like I said they talk about his background and all of that. I just think they did a really good job in making him both like relatable for sure because like he completes his plan and then he's just like, well, finally figures out what now.
Yeah.
Then he meets a girl, which that one's understandable, and you see him like everything changes when that starts.
Yeah.
Kind of changing his outlook of what he wants to be and who he wants to be. So I think just making him relatable and understandable is probably the best thing they did, and like just an easy villain to cheer for and an easier hero to root for once that happens at the end.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love I'm forgetting what the space father, space dad.
Yeah, space dad.
Space dad. I was thinking favorite character besides Megamind, of course. I loved when he became someone else.
Yeah.
Bernard in particular, and then Space Dad. I thought those were just awesome touches.
Yeah, well, I can't hear unfathomable without just going like the powers would be unfathomable without fathom.
Yeah. I thought Roxanne was a cool character. I thought Metro Man was like, it's real, you know, like you get to a point where it's just like,
I'm at the top. What do I do now?
Yeah, I was just like, man, I just want to do something else. And so kudos to him. And I'm really glad that he didn't come back, you know, and that was like fake. Because I feel like if he did come back and save the day, that would have stole a lot of heart from Megamind. And so I thought that was a good kind of writing tool. But how would you, what would your superhero or supervillain costume look like? What would you want? Would you have a black mamba?
No, I would not be in tights unless I had to be.
Yeah.
I'd probably be wearing joggers.
Yeah.
In a t-shirt.
Yeah,
I'd probably
yeah.
and if I have to put a mask on, if I'm trying to hide my identity, I guess. What would you said in my supervillain costume?
Or like superhero or supervillain, whichever one you want to be.
Oh man, I mean, I think it would be fun to just be a regular guy who just does all this stuff and doesn't change his clothes, honestly, and just everything I usually look like is what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be capes. The Incredibles teaches you that.
That's true.
So, it would either be I would just be like what I usually dress like, or I'd go all out. I mean, it would be like Black Mamba level.
Yeah.
That's comes into one of the best lines of what's, you're a villain, all right, but you're no super villain. It's like, what's the difference? And he comes in his presentation.
Yeah.
So, I guess if I was a super villain, I would go all out. I think you have to.
For sure.
But if I was a superhero, I think it's just easier to just be able to just wear what you're wearing and get out. All right, whatever.
Throw a mask on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change shirts real quick and that'd be it.
Yeah, no. And the reason I thought of that question, I was watching it and how Titan took Roxanne up, and then he like takes off his mask, and she's like, "How?" And I'm like, "What? you didn't know that was how?"
He did get a jawline, so he may have been a little thrown off. But yeah,
that's true. And so, what superpower would you want?
I've always gone with shape-shifting.
Shape-shifting.
Because there's just so many things you can do at that point, like become a bird.
Yeah.
You can become a fish, whatever. Like you kind of can get most of what you want. So I'd probably stick with shape-shifting. That just seems to get most of the things I want to do all in one superpower. Yeah. So
that's good.
What are you taking?
I'm taking watching Metro Man like speed across, like as time stood still. I was like, speed would be fun.
Stop time.
But also just like being a genius, like being able to create anything like Megamind. Although I wouldn't want the head that comes with it. So maybe my brain to go to my biceps, and then it would just like.
I had someone ask. I'm gonna throw you off a little bit here. I had someone ask me this: would you rather be able to fly but only like 10 miles per hour, or be able to run at like super speed?
Yeah.
What you pick and being able to fly or run at just you're not going very fast, but you can fly, or you can run at super speed.
Yeah, I think because it'd be cool to just like levitate.
Yeah,
times,
I
you
picked.
know?
He couldn't believe I picked flight. He kept like trying to knock down the mile. I'm like, I mean, I can fly. Like,
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
I think I'm gonna have to go super speed though.
Really?
Yeah, just because like I can't fly. I mean, I could, but like fly across the world. You know?
If you're not going very fast.
Yeah, it would just take a long time.
Yeah.
But if I could super speed, I could. It would be nice. That's a good question. I like to ask the question: if you had to pick any power, but you can't control when it comes on and when it turns off,
Oh man.
what power would you pick? Because if you pick flying, it's like, oh crap, now I can't fly. You know?
I definitely wouldn't pick shapeshifting if I couldn't control it.
Yeah.
That would be a problem. Oh man, I don't know. Maybe just invisibility. Can I still? If you're invisible, you can still talk, right?
Yeah.
So maybe just go invisible. It's like I'm still here,
Just
guys. Sorry.
randomly come back.
I'm
Yeah.
just gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go with invisibility then.
That's good. That's safe. I like to go mind reading because like
You just have to know where you're.
1 second I'm reading someone's mind, 1 second I can't.
Probably never do it when you want to either.
Yeah. Man, so over time, as you've watched this from growing up, is there a character that you've come to appreciate more as you've watched it? And is there a character or either or that you appreciate like less from watching it?
I think. I mean, just thinking about it as a whole, Bernard's really interesting because he's just some Megamind nerd.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how they have him at the beginning. Is that all he knows is Megamind.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've never been able to fully understand is Roxanne knew who Bernard was. And then Megamind doesn't change his voice. He doesn't sound like him.
Yeah.
And she just never seems to understand that this is a totally different person. Yeah. So I think just how they use him and that he becomes the central point to getting Titan to really go bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's been the one as like just the storytelling and just understanding how movies kind of go and kind of getting the plot going.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the one that like I appreciate the most.
Yeah.
In terms of one that I maybe lost, I don't know if I've lost respect. Maybe just watching the teacher at the beginning, just like this is the worst teacher of all time. Like just clearly helping the kids bully Megamind.
Yeah.
Maybe I know that's not really a character, but that's probably the one I'm watching. I'm just like, what is this lady's problem? Like, will you protect this kid just a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Always put him like Metro Man, just put him in the corner over and over again. Like, why does he have that kind of power in this class? I'd probably either that or so. When it comes though to like ones I appreciate more, Minion might be one I'd appreciate more because just how loyal he really is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I just you know how important that is to have someone like that as you get older. So Minion definitely means more. Just watching it back and understanding his role in Megamind's life. Especially like when you think about like people, like he's the only person who knows where Megamind came from and understands that whole story. And you have very limited people like that that really know you from like the beginning and are still there like as you get older. So Minion's definitely one that I appreciate a lot more as well.
Did you think he died when you first watched it? At the end?
I did. I was like, I cannot believe they killed Minion. I could not believe it.
Yeah.
But the way they showed he was alive was a very Megamind way.
Yeah, it's like
he's drama queen throws him in the fountain. So
that was good. So where do you think this ranks? I know it's your favorite, but where do you think this ranks among other animated movies?
So it was honest. Like this movie was, I think, closer to the end of like there was the whole Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks. It felt like just almost like competition at this time. And then randomly Universal has Despicable Me that just takes over. But Megamind was very late, and I feel like in like what I remember being like height of animated movies. So I mean, it's very high up there for me, but like the Madagascar movie, Madagascar 1 and 2 specifically, but those movies, you got the Shrek 1 and 2s. DreamWorks had just they were always just very different from what Pixar was doing. Like Pixar was super emotionally led, and they were great. And then you have DreamWorks that like, Shrek's just a complete, almost like everything you know about a fairy tale animated movie were just
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
completely change.
Yeah.
And they kind of continued with that of just not really a normal, like almost comedy was at the center, it felt like, but the plots were a lot heavier than you expected because like Madagascar, of course. And then, I mean, even like if you go way back, I know a lot about anime, like Over the Hedge and Hoodwink, some of these movies that like my family quotes all the time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in the upper echelon for me. And I'd put it kind of like in DreamWorks, I'd put up there with like the Madagascar, Shrek. I'd put it in there like when you're saying which was better, Pixar movies, DreamWorks, or Disney, and like you pick like your 5. Like these are ones I'm like it would be in one of the 5 for sure. That would be like this is one of those like I'm showing DreamWorks is better versus them or so. But yeah, I mean it's my favorite movie, so I'll put it number 1.
Yeah, Monsters vs. Aliens is DreamWorks.
Yes, yeah, we quote that all the time.
I love that. That is one that kind of shows that DreamWorks is going to do whatever they want. Like, I don't care what anyone else is doing.
It's one of those where I talk about like animated movies. There's just this level of where jokes only work in it. Yeah. Where Blob's like, oh, sorry, I'm just staring at that bird over there. Yeah. It's just such a dumb, and he's flirting with the Jello. It's just it only works because of the way he looks. Yeah. It would not work at all. So, no, Monster vs. Aliens is definitely one that's is up there as well.
For sure. You mentioned being introduced to more Will Ferrell movies as time went on. And like, once again, I know this is your favorite, but like when you think about all of Will Ferrell's movies, kind of like where do you put this and like rank it and in comparison to the others? Obviously different.
Yeah, I think one thing that I like about this versus these others is you can literally watch it with whoever. Yeah. There's no real, like the only fear I have is like, actually pay attention. I know you're thinking it's a kid's movie, but and you're thinking less of me now, but like if you pay attention, you're going to love it. Yeah. So in terms of his other movies, like I said, it just feels a lot of his other movies feel like Will Ferrell's just like you're kind of letting him go, which some of those make some of my favorite movies. Like Talladega Nights, I love. Yeah. Not every one of his movies for me is a winner. Yeah. No actor or actress is for me, but I would personally put it high up there just because of how controlled the comedy feels. I'm very dry sense of humor, and that's kind of what this is the whole time. It's not really reliant on much else than the dialogue, and so I would put higher up there just because I think it's more different than a lot of his other stuff he does when it comes to his like specifically comedy related movies. But like the other guys, Talladega Nights, and then Elf for me, I would put those up there in his highest. Some of the ones that get a little bit more just completely absurd, I wouldn't put as high up there. But the ones that are just kind of reliant on his ability to make absurdities seem normal. Yeah. Where like he's always got a wife that's way better looking than him, and like he doesn't realize it, but everyone else does. That kind of stuff. Where he's just like the dry sense of like the guy who's just like acting like what's the big deal? Those are the kind of ones that I love for him. But Megamind's just not. It's kind of different. I mean, like I said, it's more you're more emotionally invested in that character than a lot of his other characters because they're just so absurd. It's hard to relate to.
For sure. Man, one thing that I really appreciate about this movie is just the heart behind it. And so, man, what are kind of some underlying themes that you feel like Megamind portrays well, and that you're like, oh man, like that's a really good emotional beat right there?
Just the character itself, or the movie?
The movie.
I think it can kind of show like if I kind of like take some of the characters specifically, I think Hal's what happens with him is really interesting because you have this guy who feels like he's nothing. That's kind of feels like he's given everything, but when he's not given the actual thing that he wanted everything for, it kind of like life fell apart. Yeah. Kind of like when maybe your motivation is for something specific, and then you kind of get everything you want, but not the actual thing that you were wanting, at the center of your heart, how it can kind of like corrupt you. And I kind of compare that, even like shows like Ted Lasso, his character called Nate, and he's kind of like, it's supposed to be a nothing. He's kind of given everything he wants. He's a coach. But then when he doesn't feel like the star or the guy he wanted to be, or like as noticed, everything kind of falls apart. Yeah. So I really like kind of like showing how, and just kind of when you come from a really maybe when you feel like nothing, like think about though, like what you're hoping in, what you're wanting, because if you don't get that, if you get everything you want and don't get what you actually want, sometimes that can kind of corrupt you. I think for Megamind, just the whole idea of Megamind is finding his actual purpose, and I think that's super relatable. And kind of, he kind of takes what happened to him. They don't dive into it as much as he is adult, other than one little date scene where he's talking about how he was kind of picked on in school, and Roxanne's like, sad we didn't go to the same school. Yeah. But he kind of just uses that, and he doesn't even really consciously use it. But later, you kind of can see how, him being cast out, him being whatever, is what made him good at, his using his mind, using his brain, the bond he had with Minion. So I guess for him, just kind of using, whether it was on purpose or not, what had happened to him, and just taking advantage of it rather than letting it be a reason. Yeah. Now, although that did make him go, he talks when he's in shul in the corner, and he's like, if I'm going to be the bad guy, I'm going to be the baddest guy of them all. So, but then later you realize that everything he had kind of done that maybe was not for good, and he just found a way to use it for good. Yeah. And then I think Minion's the other emotional component really of all of them. Roxanne for sure, but she's kind of more motivation of Megamind to go good. Minion's kind of like just the rock. Yeah. That it doesn't even really matter what he's chasing. He's just like there until he gets off track, and then he kind of throws Minion out a little bit. But I think he kind of shows like how important loyalty is. Yeah. And then once, he threw him away, and then he doesn't end up with Roxanne for a while there, you kind of see how like important Minion really was when he realized, oh shoot, I really have nothing. I always had Minion. I didn't even realize it. So yeah, I would say those are kind of like the most emotional beats that I'd say, or components of the movie.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I think, man, looking at Metro Man and looking at Hal and looking at Megamind, kind of your three central characters. I guess they get something and they realize, oh, that isn't what I thought it was going to be, and like it leads them to do different things, and honestly, to go even deeper, like when they find out what they wanted isn't what they thought it was going to be, they kind of turn to something else to be like, okay, maybe this is going to do it. And so for Metro Man, it's music. For Hal, it's like, I'm going to be a bad guy. Yeah. And then for Megamind, it's like, all right, I'm going to see if Roxanne's interested in, and so it's like this continual cycle of trying to like fill this hole.
And Roxanne was kind of the second, like, I think Roxanne almost became like the actual good intention, because at first what he realized is, oh, I should just make another Metro Man. Yeah. And then Roxanne kind of comes in, and that's what kind of starts bringing him in the better direction. Yeah. So I just blanked out on my train of thought, but that part's really interesting to me too. It's just like, he's just like, well, I guess I'll just go over and do exactly what I was doing when I was kind of, at least I had a purpose. And then Roxanne kind of like is the one who actually completely changes what he thinks his purpose is.
Yeah. How long do you think Megamind would have been Bernard? Like,
if he could have been, just
tell Roxanne.
I don't know. That's like, if he didn't have to deal with all the other stuff, he just turned into Bernard, and he didn't have to deal with the Titan stuff going on. I don't know. I could see him being someone who got very close over and over and over, and then didn't do it. And then I think no matter what, it would have been an accident. I think that's probably, no matter what, how it would have happened. It's just been how long could he have held it off. But I think she would have figured it out eventually, I'm sure. I just think it would have been how long, because he held off before she accidentally hits the watch or whatever. Yeah, for sure. Or realizes that he's always wearing that watch and asks him to take it off or something like that.
Yeah. Man, so what kind of, we talked about emotional beats in the movies. Man, what, for you, and what emotions and memories does this movie bring up? Like, as you watch it time and time again, what kind of comes to mind?
I come from like a movie quoting family. So really it's just like that. Like the when I think of a lot of animated movies, they're very quotable lines, and Megamind has them. And so it's just kind of like, when I think of certain things from that movie, I just think of like one of my siblings or something saying it to me. Because that's just, it's like, I know where those lines pop up. Yeah. And I know if like you have those jokes or whatever with people, and for us, it's movies. So sometimes when you like quote a movie and it's or quote something, it's the wrong. You realize, oh, you're not the crowd that's going to understand this. So I say like that's kind of where a lot of it brings me back to. Is just kind of the bond, I guess, that it's kind of brought for us. And what and I'm actually out of my siblings, I remember movie quotes probably the least. I've got 5 of them, and they all probably remember them better than I do. So it's fun to kind of go through lines and think about and watch them and think about that's, became one of our like family quotes that we use all the time. So like Shul, just calling it Shul, definitely one that we use a lot. And then at the beginning of the plot where he's like, and he would win some and I would almost win others. We quote that a lot. But that would be kind of, I'd say where it comes back to for me is just like the specific lines that my siblings or my cousins and us that we still quote. And just kind of remembering when we started, like starting to quote that, and, and all the other quotes from other movies that we use. So,
yeah. I mean, watching it, I'm just like, man, it's really cool when you take the time to watch an animated movie. You kind of just assume, oh, it's for kids, but like, when you actually watch it, you're like, there's some really good stuff here.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things with Megamind and a lot of those DreamWorks movies is they really don't cut many corners with the plot either, just because it's an animated kids movie. I mean, if you think about so much of the way they set things up, like they start with him falling, and they get back and you think it's all over and they're just going to find some dumb way that he beats Titan. But the way he does it makes sense with everything. They've got he just happens, he has that thing, but you know why he has the dehydrated little block or whatever. You know why he has the gun that can get Titan. And like even when it's like there's no reason he should beat Titan, but they're going to find some way that he's got to beat him. It all makes sense. Like there's no real part of the movie that they didn't set up that like, oh, that's not really a cut corner.
The Metrocity line,
the Metrocity line that killed everything, or that made Titan realize what was really going on. There wasn't really anything that I felt like, oh, they just had to come up with something random, so whatever. And like at the beginning, you think that Metro Man's weakness is copper. And you're like, that is such and you're thinking the whole movie, why would like a Superman-like character's weakness be copper?
And when he traps Titan in copper, it's like, why isn't this working?
And that's how they start to realize, wait. And they don't start to realize Metro Man is dead. They have to though go find him, and that's what leads to, oh, Metro Man's alive, which then ultimately leads to we have to stop. So that's one of those things that you don't realize usually with animated movies is you think, oh, they're just gonna like animated movie. It's just for kids, just make it mindless entertainment. But it's like, no, if you think about the plot, there were not really corners that were cut. Everything that happened kind of made sense, and how the good guy won, you got why the good guy won, not just like the good guy has to win. So we'll just find some random way for him to do it.
Yeah, and that's good. Man, last couple questions. Underrated, perfectly rated, or overrated when it comes to Megamind, the movie?
Like in just people?
Yeah, do you think it's overrated, underrated, or perfectly just kind of like, that's a good place for it?
Well, it's your favorite movie, and not everyone feels that way. I feel like you have to say underrated. I get, so I would say I get why it's specifically my favorite movie, and like it's not. So I would say it's pretty well rated. Like of course I want to go underrated because I think everyone should think it's their favorite movie, but I do think it's specifically like the movie really is just like, it's like if my humor was made into a, like if I made a movie, I feel like I would have made Megamind. So many of the jokes in there just feel like, or my family. It just it's one of the, we have a couple of those movies we feel like if we just made a movie, that's probably the movie we would have made. So I would just I would probably say it's pretty accurately rated just because I get why it's not everyone's. But I mean, there's part of me that of course is underrated. So
for sure.
I have to argue my point a lot. So. Where would you put it?
And I would honestly say perfectly rated. I think it's gotten a lot of buzz not recently, but it came out and then I feel like it got pretty popular like a few years ago or so. Like everyone was talking about it. There were memes about it. The cast is like an all-star cast. And so I would say it's pretty well rated. I don't think it's overrated at all. I think it's great. And I don't think it's underrated because I think a lot of people even jokingly know about Megamind and like things like that. Man, closing thoughts on just Megamind, man. Why should people at home watch it, man? Why should we get as fired up as the Kelly family, the Youngs?
Oh man, it's just a movie that if you have to give it once to really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It's because, like I said, there's not really any corners cut. The lines are great. And it's one of those movies too with how funny I think it is. Every time you watch it, there can be a little detail that you realize they meant to be a joke that you didn't even realize the first time. Like I was talking about earlier with the "Hey boy, settle down" over there.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
it just I don't know. To me, like, that was not the first time I watched it.
yeah,
I realized like, oh, that's so dumb.
yeah,
Um, so I would just my reasoning to watch it is it's just an easy movie to put on.
yeah.
It doesn't matter who's in the room.
Mhm.
So like just it's not you can put it on just to pass an hour and a half, and then
Yeah.
you're just gonna realize, well, I actually enjoyed how I
Yeah.
spent that hour and a
Yeah.
half. I get it's not really like a movie that you're just gonna say, guys, let's all get together, we're gonna watch Megamind,
Yeah.
but it's definitely one that like once you watch it, you're gonna be happy you watched it.
For sure. Oh, that's good. Well, thank you, Kelly, for coming on, man. Thank you for talking about Megamind. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. And we hope that you know the difference between a villain and a supervillain is always
Presentation.
presentation. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.